Okay, Coach, thanks for waiting. We are ready to get started, and we will start with our first question. It's going to go to Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, go ahead.
Zach, how's it going? The last 2 minutes of the first half this year, obviously, you guys have done really well. What's been the key to that, and what does that show about your offense that you've been so successful in that part of the game?
Well, it's something we're really built for, and what I just mean by that is, one of our first installs is really on the ball, no huddle. So it doesn't really affect the communication process. It's something we've invested a lot of time in. Joe does a great job managing that. The receivers and the other skill guys understand the urgency to get set and be where you need to be. And of course, we got a lot of playmakers. That's why we're in the position we are. And those guys have done a great job at the end of the half, giving us some really positive momentum going into halftime.
Okay, next question is going to Jenna Alike. Jenna, go ahead.
Hi, Zach. So there's been a lot of talk around the league this year about analytics and the use of them, and I was just wondering how much that goes into your decision-making.
We balance that. We have a guy who majors in that named Sam Francis. He's part of our meetings all week. His office is just a short distance from mine. We use him throughout the week for a lot of different reasons. He's in the press box. He's talking to me throughout the game. Just a bunch of quick hitters, and in terms of things that we've already discussed over the course of the week and in longer form on Saturdays before the game. So, of course, we balance that. We have those conversations. We make sure that we're making sound decisions during the game and that we're all on board with them.
Ben Volin, Boston Globe. Go ahead.
Hey, Zach, congrats on making it this far.
Thank you.
Two years ago, obviously you guys were 2-14. Now you're here in the Super Bowl. Certainly not to imply that it's all because of one person, but what kind of impact has Joe Burrow had in this organization? How can you quantify what he brings?
Well, it's certainly difficult to put into words. He's been a big part of what we're doing. Anytime that you got a quarterback that can take you to these heights, I think we've got really good talent on this team, really good football character. And when you believe that your quarterback can take you the distance, it allows everybody just to play that 1% better because they know on the other side that trigger man's capable of doing some really special things. So I think he's helped us take us to these heights. We have a lot of confidence in him. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. It's fun to be a part of.
Next question is Josh Dubow, Associated Press. Josh.
Hey, Zach, Joe was saying the other day that maybe early in the season he wouldn't have felt as comfortable doing the scrambles that he did in the AFC Championship game. At what point did you sort of see that he was back to his normal self, and how much has that added to your guys' offense?
Yeah, I think probably just before the midway point of the season, he was moving around. I think just had more confidence maybe in his knee. He's human. He's coming off a major surgery there. First time he's ever experienced it. So there's a lot of unknowns there. I think he did a good job battling that through training camp, and we gave him some time off also when he got sore. And so obviously then you're not playing in any preseason games. You're playing in some regular season games against some really good defenses early in the league, early in the season. And I think as he got more comfortable, closer to the bye, we started to see, okay, he looks like he's back to 100%. It's hard to ever guess how far along he is, but you could see his confidence growing and his movement skills. And certainly this back half of the season, he looks like the guy that played for us last year pre-injury.
Laurel Failer. Go ahead, Laurel.
Thank you. Zach, you told us that when you guys were preparing for the Rams in 2019, you were having a hard time planning for Aaron Donald. How has that changed now that you've had a few years in the league, and what's that process like this time around?
Well, he's certainly one of the greatest players we've ever played against, and you watch other teams' plans for him, and you can have great plans. He's a real problem, and some of that you got to really focus on. And so you spend time and energy talking about Aaron Donald, and then you got these other elite players that are surrounding him as well. So I think they've done a great job building that team, putting pressure on opposing teams' offenses. They got a great offense themselves. They got great specialists as well. Johnny Hecker's one of the best in the business. Been there a long time doing it. So they present a lot of challenges. There's no wonder why they're in the Super Bowl. Our guys are excited for the opportunity, to prove ourselves once again that we belong here and we can win this game.
Next question is Aaron Wilson. Aaron?
Hey, Zach. Zach, when you look at the way Joe has commanded the offense, what is it about him that kind of sets him apart as a guy that can take control and just adjust to things on the fly? He just seems very unflappable. Nothing seems to bother him.
Yeah, that's a special quality to have, and that predates my time with him. I can promise you that. I think that's just something that whether he gets it from his dad and his mom, or that's just something he's always had innately. I don't know that anybody else really deserves credit for that other than Joe Burrow. It's what makes him special. It's what he's able to elevate his teammates and his coaches around him to believe that special things are possible. And again, he's just done a tremendous job leading this football team and helping us score points. And when the moments are big, he plays really big as well. You know, those are the stages that he's built for. And so I'm excited to watch him play next Sunday.
I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but Justinio Lovenzi? Go ahead.
Thanks. Coach Taylor, obviously you and Coach McVay have a great friendship and a lot of history together. If you don't mind, just detail that a little bit for us and let us know what it's like to go against a friend in such a high stakes game. Is there pride and ultimate pride in beating him in this game? Can you just explain that?
Well, I'll give you the beginning of the relationship. We met in Shula's restaurant at the Combine, probably in 2013, 2014, 2015, I would imagine, somewhere in there. And then we'd play against the Washington football team, and we'd talk pregame, things like that. And then he gave me a call when he finally got the job to come join him as the assistant receiver coach. And so I jumped on the opportunity. I didn't know him that well at the time, but we knew each other enough to know that we wanted to work together. But to answer your next part, you know, I've played against my brother 4 times. I've coached against Sean. I've coached against Matt. There's so many people in this league at this point, you know, 10 years in, that are always on the sidelines across from you. And that's just part of the game. There's no added, oh, I want to beat this guy. No, it's the Bengals playing the Rams for the Super Bowl. Our team wants to beat their team. It really has nothing to do with the relationships on the other side of the ball or across the other sidelines. This is more just about us trying to win this football game.
And if you could, just to follow up, could you describe Joe Burrow's swag? How would you describe his style, his swag?
Yeah, I'm not really hip enough to answer that question for you. I think the other players in the locker room, my sons, you know, they probably could describe it better than I can. I couldn't pull it off, you know, the things that he wears, and it's just there's no way that I'm hip enough to do that. But Joe Burrow can do it, and it's interesting to see. My sons buy all this. They buy the sunglasses and the $10 version at least, and so he's made a statement on our youth around the city and probably around the country. You know, there's going to be a lot of kids emulating him, and I would imagine 9-10 months from now, there's going to be a lot of young babies around this league named Joe as well. So that's the impact he's had on Cincinnati. I can promise you that.
Next question goes to John with Sports View America. John.
Hey, Zach, you've got a heck of a lot of fans down here in central and eastern Kentucky, and I know the University of Kentucky is tickled to death with one of your former Ram cohorts, Liam Cohen. Can you just talk a little bit about Liam and specifically how maybe the success that he's had at Kentucky has validated the way that you guys are going about and doing things up there?
You bet. I think the world of Liam. I think he's a tremendous football coach. You know, I think Kentucky's really lucky to have him. I came across Liam. I didn't know him, but when I was at the University of Cincinnati, we were playing, I believe, Connecticut, and I was watching some early tape of Connecticut, and they were playing Maine. And I remember thinking, man, Maine's offense is really good. You know, who runs the show? And I looked it up, and Liam Cohen's the offense coordinator. And I followed his career ever since. We had an opening, actually, when I got promoted at the Rams, and we interviewed a couple really qualified guys. Another coach on our staff recommended Liam Cohen. And I said, you know, I've never met this guy, but I know that his film proves that he belongs in this league. And so we hired him. He interviewed it. He knocked it out of the park. We hired him. He was a great addition to that staff. You know, I know that he and Sean got really close as well. And so Kentucky's lucky to have him. He's done a great job. He's going to be a head coach in one of these leagues soon enough, college or pro. That's how much I think of his football IQ and his work ethic and his relationship with his players. And so I really think the world of Liam. No surprise. I watched every game they played this year whenever I could, just to see the cool things he was doing. But on the other side of that, Brad White was the defense coordinator, was my host on my Wake Forest trip when I signed with Wake Forest. So Brad got me to Wake Forest. We played on the same team there for 2 years. And so it's awesome to see him as well. I think it's 2 of Rhode Island's finest, Brad White and Liam Cohen, you know, leading the charge over there at UK.
Next question is Luciana. Go ahead, Luciana.
Hey, Coach, I hope you're doing well, and thanks for your time. This is Luciano Shulman with Ensoners Latin American Network. Based on the average age of your players, this would be one of the youngest teams to win a Super Bowl ever. Do you see this as an advantage? And in case you do, how so?
They're a very mature team. You know, I couldn't tell you what the average age is, but they certainly they're not overwhelmed by these moments. I think they've proven that really over the last 2 months. And so this is just another game to them. I know what the stage is, I know what the media is, but you know, that's why we've spent a lot of time with Duke Tobin building the team this way. It's a lot of guys who played in championships in college, whether it was at LSU or Clemson or Alabama or Ohio State. And then, you know, a lot of these free agents we've signed have been part of playoff teams before. So these guys, they know they belong on this stage, and we're going to get their best on Sunday.
Next question is back to Jenna Alike. Jenna?
Hi, Coach. So what does it mean to be the coach that brings brings this team back to the Super Bowl after such a long drought?
Well, I think that speaks to our organization as a whole. You know, I know I'm the head coach, and people look at that as the person to give you credit to, but that's not the case at all. You know, it's these assistant coaches who've been through some really difficult times here, who've stood shoulder to shoulder and taken on all the adversity and gotten the most out of these players. It's ownership and personnel from top to bottom being aligned. That has allowed us to do this, because if you don't have total alignment from top to bottom, then there's no way you're playing for Super Bowl. So I get uncomfortable when people, you know, phrase it like that, because it's a part of everybody that's a part of this organization that has helped us bring us to this point, and everybody deserves equal credit. And, you know, if one piece is out of form there, then there's no way that this can happen. So just proud to be a part of the Cincinnati Bengals organization.
Next up is Colin Cronin. Colin, go ahead.
Hi, Zach. Greetings from this part of the world. The Bengals actually have a huge following in Ireland, so much kudos to you. Just touching on your last question, can you talk about Duke Tobin and the job he's done in building the roster?
Absolutely. You know, Duke's been here a long time. You know, he's worked his way up from scout all the way to where he's at now. Duke has no ego. You know, he just wants to make sure that we get the right players in the building that can help us win a lot of games. He's done a great job leading that scouting department. You know, I think we've got one of the best scouting departments in all the league, and we've got the right people in there, and they do a great job, you know, researching these players, getting all this information, balancing that with information the coaches can provide as well, and just making sure that we're all on the same page and all in alignment when we draft a player or when we sign a player and we bring them in the building, that we all get on board with that. And so it's been really a special time working with Duke. He makes it so easy, and he's done such a great job building this roster, and you know, really proud of that Duke and that entire personnel department for the job that they've done.
Next up is Arne Stapleton. Arne?
Hey, Zach, it's Arne from Associated Press in Denver. Real quick before I ask you a question, I just wanted to send my best to Sarah. She worked for me in Milwaukee back in the day, so
okay.
Give her my best.
I will.
Marty, thanks. Hey, you know, the last time Von Miller was in the Super Bowl, he took over the game and basically put a ring on everybody's finger in Denver. And I'm wondering, I know he's a little bit older now, but is Von, in your view, still a guy that you really have to prep for and kind of focus on to prevent him from taking over a game like he did?
There's no question. There's no question. You know, Von Miller is Von Miller. They got Leonard Floyd on the other side as well. So again, they got a lot of weapons to attack you. You know, offenses have really struggled going against this defense. You know, a lot of teams have scored maybe on defense have scored. You know, you look at the Tennessee game and the Green Bay game, and that's how some of those teams have built leads against them. But their defense has played really consistently well all season long. I was with Vaughn at Texas A&M. He's part of one of the most special seasons I was ever a part of there in 2010. Vaughn took over games that season and helped us beat the likes of Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Texas and all those teams. And so I've always been very fond of Vaughn. I'm very aware of his capabilities and how he can take over a game. I've seen it too many times to let that one slip by us. So he's a big part of what they're doing, and that was a great kind of midseason acquisition for him. I remember texting Sean at the time, you know, great pickup, because we were about to play Denver in a couple of weeks. So I was thankful Vaughn wasn't going to be a part of Denver. Little did I know that it was really going to come back here at the Super Bowl and he'd be a part of that. So we're excited about the opportunity it brings to play against great players. And Vaughn is certainly a very special player.
Awesome. Thanks.
Next up is Chris Ryan, WGIR New England. Chris?
Hey, Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Wanted to ask you about youth versus experience. Obviously, you have two young head coaches in this game. You have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and you guys have had great success throughout the course of the postseason. How have you gone about overcoming, quote unquote, a lack of experience? And what about you think those two players has allowed them to shine in these types of moments?
Well, as a team, we just try to treat these like normal weeks, and let the media make it the bigger deal that it is. But for us, it's just going through the same meeting schedule, the same practice schedule, trying to keep that process the same. And then we get out there and the ball kicks off and it's just a normal game. I think that for those guys that you mentioned, they're used to this stage. They're used to all the spotlight that comes with playing in the college football championship and college football national championship. And so now it's just kind of part of that process for them. They're in the NFL. It's a similar stage to them. They expected to be here and they expect to produce on this stage. And so it's really cool to watch those guys, get through these first and second seasons that they've had here.
Next up is Anthony Casenza. Anthony.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on a great season. I wanted to ask you about a handful of assistant coaches you brought in here. Some of the biggest areas of improvement on this team this year has been the wide receiver group, the defensive line. You brought in Troy Walters, Marion Hobby, Frank Pollock for the offensive line. Can you just talk about the impact of those hires and what they've brought to the team this year?
Yeah, I think a blanket statement would be that they go above and beyond, and they really teach the details of their position. They're on their guys to have that consistency that they've had since August all the way through, really mid-February. And I think that's what's key is, they don't back off. They don't take a break. They've stayed on those guys every step of the way. And that's why those units have been pretty consistent. Starting Troy, I coached Troy at Texas A&M in 2010, 2011, and knew that he was a special guy, first of all, and he was going to be a great receiver coach. And so it just so worked out that we were able to get him on staff last year, and he's done a tremendous job, again, raising the standard for that room, getting the most out of those guys. Frank Pollock was here before I was. I know the players and the coaches thought the world of him. The organization thought the world of him. We interviewed him. Of course, I could see what everybody was talking about. He's been a great fit. Really like working hand in hand with Frank. He's done a great job with that line, that run game as a whole. He creates a great plan that he believes in. He gets the players to believe in. He's been a tremendous asset there. And then Marion Hobby, we hired him from the Dolphins. And, man, you talk about a guy with no ego. He just wants to work hard and get the most out of his players. And he's been a great fit on the staff and in the defensive staff room. And he's certainly, he's got a great group of guys to work with as well. But he gets the most out of them. And those guys believe in him and what he's teaching them and how he's helping them improve. I know that they all believe that. So I'm glad you mentioned those three guys. They've done an outstanding job for us.
Thank you.
Next up is Eric Wilson. Eric.
Coach Taylor, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
I want to ask you about the culture of this team.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's something we believed in from the get-go, and that's the foundation of everything that we grow off of. And so, that's from day one, getting the guys to understand why we're meeting the way we are, why we're practicing the way we are, and kind of finding the leadership in the locker room and then growing it from there. And so, again, that's all the assistant coaches being on board and then listening together through the good times and the bad. And the players have really bought in and taken over this team. We think that the best teams come from teams who have great player ownership. And so we're on top of them about the scheme and the details, but at the same time, we want their feedback on things that we can continue to improve on, whether it's, lunch, dinner, practice times, walkthrough times. How can we maximize our abilities and make sure this team is as good as it can possibly be? And that comes from great player ownership, great player leadership, holding each other accountable and to a high standard and not letting anything slip as we get here to mid-February. And so really proud of these assistant coaches and these players that have really bought in and allowed us to play in a game like this.
Thank you so much, Coach. Best of luck.
You bet.
Next up is Danilo. Danilo, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Danilo Lacalle from Torcedores TV Brazil. How are you doing today?
I've never been better.
Nice, man. So last season, the Bengals were in the division, And this year you guys are in the Super Bowl. What do you think has changed for this team to get more consistency since last season?
I think, for a lot of guys, continuity in the scheme. Some of the guys have been here for 2 or 3 years on offense, defense, special teams. So they have a better understanding of the scheme. And then on top of that, talking about Duke Tobin and his staff bringing in the right pieces through the draft and free agency to complement what we already have and really take us to the next level. And we've taken in, a lot of guys who you call them pros. They've been in this league a number of years, but they got a pro mindset. They understand the work ethic it takes to be great. They love football. The same can be said about the draft classes we've had. We've taken a lot of guys who are captains at their schools or played at a really high level for a lot of championships. And so they know what the standard is when they walk in the door. And I think that's allowed us to make this jump from year 1 and year 2 all the way to where we're at now here in year 3.
Thank you.
Next up is Alec Lace. Alec?
Hey, Coach, what's doing? Congratulations on making it to the Super Bowl. I host a show called First Class Fatherhood. It focuses on fatherhood and family life. I got 4 kids like yourself there. I was curious, is there any noticeable difference for you coaching the players that are fathers as opposed to the single guys that are not dads on the team?
That's a hard one to say. I think, those guys probably start to think about how they want to raise their kids and the principles that are important, the discipline that's important. So you might see that a little bit differently. They understand, hey, we're going to be on time. We got to be disciplined. They're trying to manage somebody else's life and get the most out of them. So maybe they understand a little bit better what the coaches are asking them to do, and they can relate that to their home life. Not many guys have older kids. Most of them are really young. But it is cool to see. That's kind of one of the difficult things about COVID right now is you haven't gotten a chance to see their kids, and my kids haven't been around our players like it was 3 years ago, 20 years ago, where all those young kids were around at practice and at walkthroughs, and you could see them after games. And so I'm excited to get back to a time when you get to interact more with the players' families, and my own family gets a chance to interact with these players.
Next up is Al Butler, UPI. Al?
Hi, Zach. Congratulations.
Thanks, Al.
I just talked to Joe, and he mentioned that during the whole season, the playoff drought wasn't mentioned amongst the team. I was curious, was that a conscious effort by you? And also, what advantage do you think some of the youth of this team has as far as not necessarily dwelling on those past experiences of the Bengals' struggles in the playoffs?
Well, I'll say this. We're very proud of the history here at the Cincinnati Bengals. You look back over the several decades, and there's been some tremendous teams, coaches, players, memories. But these players, it's important to embrace all that and understand all that. But this is the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals. They weren't a part of all that yet. And so, they're very much focused. They have a very narrow focus on week to week and playing their best and winning these playoff games to put us in a position. I think those are things that they can reflect back on after the season when all the work's said and done, of just how memorable and how special that is to not only this team and this organization, but the city as a whole. But right now we got bigger things to focus on, and that's what's important. And then there will be a time to reflect back on, man, that was, this team really hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. I'm glad to be a part of that. But that hasn't been what we talked about. That hasn't been our focus. Those are things that we can reflect on later.
Jay Morrison, you have the next question.
Hey, Zach, I'm going to follow protocol here. They asked Jay Morrison from The Athletic in Cincinnati. I don't know if we're allowed to do follow-ups, but my first one's just
Go ahead, Jay. I'll allow you to do a follow-up.
Thank you. First one's very simple. What is Lou Anarimo's greatest attribute as a defensive coordinator?
I think communicating with these players and helping them understand what's being asked of them and taking their feedback as well. And he's got such a rich history, as a DB coach. And we've got some DBs that are capable of thinking at a higher level and playing at a higher level. They've been in this league a long time. They're all tremendous football players, but they all have a really high football IQ. And so I think that relationship, not only them, but the Sam Hubbards and the Trey Hendricksons and BJs and DJs and Larry and all those guys, the linebackers at the second level. So they understand what he's asking them to do and how to do it. And so it's allowed them to play at a very high level. And it's been really fun. Lou's got no ego, so it's easier for me to communicate with him. And all those conversations that you need to have between head coach and coordinators during the week and during the game. And that process has been really, really easy for us.
It seems as though he's asking a lot of guys to do a lot of different things. And how much of that versatility do you think is playing into the run the defense is on in the second half of the season, where maybe guys are getting more comfortable with the newer things he's asking them to do?
Right. And when you ask them to do a lot of things, they need to understand why it all fits together. If you're just doing a lot of different things, but nobody understands how it all ties together, then that's where you're going to see the defensive breakdowns that lead to some tough performances. We have not had that. So he does a good job articulating that, communicating that. Our players understand why. I certainly think it puts a lot of pressure on the offense when things look the same, but they're different, and not knowing, what look you're going to get post snap. And so I certainly think that that's helped us be in a position here where our defense is played at the level it's played at.
Mike Petraglia. Next question, Mike.
Hey, Zach, how are you doing?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great.
I wanted to ask you about Nick Cosgrave and the critical role he has played in helping your players, namely CJ Uzama, among many, to get back to full health, and what kind of role he will be playing in the next week as he tries to get CJ ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they've worked hand in hand here for these last couple of days, and but not only that, they worked together all last offseason. Really, CJ got hurt in the second game of the 2020 season. He was with Nick every step of the way, all the way up until training camp. So they had that previous relationship. I think they know how to work with each other, how to communicate with each other. Every practice I see CJ over there with Nick getting ready, and I go talk to them about where CJ is at, and it's obviously been very positive. But you can't say enough great things about Nick. I think the respect that Nick has in our locker room, there's no limit you can put on that. He's worked with Joe Burrow and DJ and Trey Hopkins and CJ. And so you've got all these high-level players that have worked with Nick and come back and played at a very high level. I think, unfortunately, we don't want any injuries going forward, but those guys understand, man, what the job he's done with some of our best players, and they've gotten back and played even beyond that level, that they've got the faith that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's got that right rapport with the guys where he knows how to push them and how to communicate with them. And because that's when you see people at their rawest, is coming off of injuries, doing all the grueling rehab work. Those are tough days. And that's where you can really test these players and see what they're about. And so I think it's important that you get the right tact and the right personality to manage that. And Nick certainly does. And I think the players and the coaches really respect that.
Next question is Stephen Box. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach. First of all, congratulations on making it to the Super Bowl.
Thank you.
This game really is a bit of a contrast. On one side, you have the Rams, who everyone almost expected to be here after making all the big free agency moves, and you guys are a little bit more on the unexpected side. Are you using that at all to help kind of motivate the team or keep them focused this week?
No, we expected to be here. We've known what team we've had all along. We have never surprised ourselves, I can promise you that. And so we'll let everybody else paint the picture of what this game means to the outside world. But to us, we expected to be here. We've known we've had a great team. We've been playing some really good teams all year long. Win or lose, we've learned a lot from those games. We've always felt like we should have won the games as you walk off the field. I know that's not the reality, but, certainly we've been battle tested here these last couple of weeks. And our guys know that we belong on this field and on Super Bowl Sunday. And I expect to see our guys' best.
Next up is Neil Reynolds. Neil.
Hi, Coach. It's Neil Reynolds from Sky Sports NFL in the UK. Just wondered about, just been talking to Joe Burrow, and he was talking about his confidence level and how that has grown through his career. What have you seen in terms of his confidence, and then how that has impacted the whole team?
Well, Joe's always been very confident because he earns that confidence. He puts in the work. He's got a very high football IQ. He's got a very high work ethic. And so he really sets the standard for this team. They rally around him. I think what I've seen from Joe is the more defenses he's seen over this last year, he just quickly stores that away and learns from that and files it away for another game, another moment where he's going to have to draw on that experience. And he's just like anybody else. He learns. You only have the experiences that you have, but he quickly learns from that, maybe faster than a lot of people, and uses that to his advantage to put himself in a position to make these plays. And again, like I've said, he's built for this stage. He's played for state championships. He's played for national championships. Now he's playing for Super Bowl. I think that's been his expectation all along. He's not surprised by it. He rises to these occasions, and we're certainly happy to have him.
Next up is Ben Shulman. Ben.
Hey, Coach. Thanks so much for taking the time. What have you seen in Dan Pitcher that's led him to be so successful so young?
Dan, I first met Dan a couple years ago when he worked for the Bengals and I worked for UC. We were staying at the same hotel. We had a Thursday night game 1 for UC, and I think they had a preseason game 4, and so there was some overlap. And so he was in a room with Bill Lazor, a former colleague of mine, and I met Dan. So I knew who he was at that point. I got this job. It was recommended that Dan is a really good young coach. You should keep him on. So we did. And then I quickly realized why, just working with him that first year, how smart he is. He's an outside the box thinker. He's got great communication skills. He's a standout quarterback at Cortland State, was up for all those top awards there as a great quarterback there. So he's got the background and the makeup. And I've just been really impressed with him. He's a big part of what we do. He's done an outstanding job with Joe Burrow and all the other quarterbacks in that room, developing them. I've got a lot of trust in him. Brian Callahan's our offensive coordinator, and on game day, I hear mostly from Brian Callahan, and but I also respect Dan's opinion too when he speaks up, and he's got some thoughts as well. And so we're fortunate to have a lot of great coaches on the staff. Dan is certainly one of them. I think the world of Dan.
Just to follow up quickly, one of your other coaches, Coach Lou, I've asked some of your players and some of his former players, and a lot of them talk about the man he is, not just the coach. What kind of personality does he bring to your locker room?
Well, he cares about the players, and I think forming those relationships are critical for him. And he reminds me all the time. He's from Staten Island. I've never been to Staten Island. I've never been in that area. I think that's part of the makeup of his personality too. I like being around that demeanor and that personality. But I think the players really respect him because he knows what he's talking about. He puts them in really good positions to be successful. But on top of that, he cares about them, on and off the field. And I truly believe the players feel that.
Next up is Mark Craig from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Mark.
Yeah, Zach, I was wondering if you could give maybe one detail of something you learned about coaching from Sean McVay, and maybe like one example of maybe something in your program that comes from Sean's, that Sean McVay tree.
Okay. I think his relationship with his players is really special. It's not just scheme based. He really wants to get to know those guys and see their personalities shine through. And, so that's, we have 2 team rules: be on time and protect the team. And what protect the team really means is, we want you to be yourself. This is a different age of professional athlete and college athlete. Social media allows you to project yourself and build your brand and all the things that come with that. And I want our players to embrace that. I don't want to take that away from them. I think I get that from Sean. But to protect the team comes with that. Don't do things that the team's going to have to answer for. Your teammates are going to have to answer for. Your coaches are going to have to answer for. But go ahead and be yourself. And I think our guys have really embraced that and allowed their personalities to shine through. I saw that from Sean. I think the other part is it's just how we practice. It's the last time they made the Super Bowl run, we had a very healthy team, and I want to say, 21 of our 22 day 1 starters were part of that Super Bowl team. And that speaks to how they practice over the course of the week, how they do the walkthroughs, how they do the load management through sports science. We've certainly taken that on here. I think it's safe to say that we're probably 2 of the healthiest teams at this point in the league, and that helps you get to games like this. Certainly we've lost a couple players that are key players for us, but I think overall, we're happy with where we are as a health of a team. But that goes back to Joey Bose, our strength coach, how we practice. And those are a lot of things that we've taken from the Rams.
Next up is Andrew Callahan. Andrew.
Hey, Zach, congrats on all your success in getting to this point. I wanted to take you back just to drafting Jamar there in the first round. I know it's something you've talked about, but just the importance of, having a guy who could step in and have that chemistry with Joe, which obviously had to continue to develop, but young quarterback, and the significance of just having talented weapons that he can trust and go to early in his career.
Well, I think that Jamar, no matter what team drafted Jamar would have had a ton of success this year. But I do think him being able to hit the ground running with the chemistry standpoint and the relationship with Joe has probably allowed him to maximize his opportunities in year 1, because you don't go through the getting to know you process on, okay, how do I talk to this receiver? I want him to do this on a route, but I'm not quite sure how to say it. He and Joe, they've already done that. They've already gotten that out of the way years ago when they were at LSU together. So from day one, they were on the same page. They've got a great relationship on and off the field. And so it's allowed, I think it's allowed Jamar to just reach his highest peak as fast as possible. I just mean highest peak for his rookie year. I still think that there's potential there as we go forward, but it's been really fun to watch Jamar just so quickly be a pro from day one. His work ethic, his approach before practices, after practices, early in game days with Troy Walters, the process he goes through has remained unchanged from training camp all the way to Super Bowl week. And that's why each week he continues to impress people, but that's just because his behind the scenes work ethic is so good.
Next up is Mike K. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Zach. I had two questions for you. One, what has Eli Apple brought to your defense, especially during this playoff run? And then also with your brother, Press Taylor, potentially up for some offensive coordinator jobs, why is he ready for that sort of role?
Well, I think Eli, it's the consistency at the corner level in this league is so key. And he's brought that to us, and he's got a lot of confidence in himself. He's done a great job working through practices, and he's got a good relationship with Von Bell and Lou Anorimo. He's played with those guys, coached with those guys before. So we're really happy to have Eli. He's just done such a tremendous job. He's been a part of so many big plays, especially lately here in December and January, that have helped put us in this position to be playing for a Super Bowl. And the next part is my brother. I think Press is one of the sharpest coaches in this league. I speak to him almost on a daily basis, and of course I'm his brother, and I believe that. But just the people he's worked with, they all want to continue to hire him. And it's he's been around some really good coaches, and he's made such a strong impression on the players and the coaches that he's been with, and scouts, coaches always pull me aside and tell me such wonderful things that make you proud as an older brother. So it's no surprise at all that he's in the positions that he's in right now. I get people call me all the time asking if he's going to be available to hire, because the people he's interacted with think of him that highly. And so proud of the opportunities, proud of the way he's always carried himself in some really difficult positions. His integrity and his character has always shined through. And so that's what I love about Press. And he's a really sharp coach, and he's going to do great things in this league.
Next up is Thomas at TV3 Sport. Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Mr. Taylor. It's actually a bit of what you were talking about before with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Could you give us a concrete example where you were impressed with their cooperation and their understanding?
Well, so many times they bring a play to life, okay? And so we may install a play, and, hey, Jamar, you've got this route. It's at this depth with this stem. But he and Joe, take it to the next level. Hey, Joe may say, hey, I want you to run it with this little nuance at the top, and Jamar can give his feedback as well. And that's the ownership that you need from the players. I don't want to be the one dictating how we do everything. It's I want to lay it out for them. Hey, this is our thought. This is why we think it's going to work. You guys can feel free to make it better. And so again, it's that relationship between those two guys and that communication that can happen over the course of a week or during a game is key. And it's allowed us to make some of the plays that we've made. And so again, it's a special relationship that those guys have. And it's not just Joe and Jamar. It's Joe and Tyler Boyd and Joe and T. Higgins and Joe and Mike Thomas and Trent Taylor. And so all those guys have done a great job of forming their own relationship with Joe. And again, that's allowed us to have a lot of success in the passing game.
Thank you.
Stephen Holder with The Athletic. Go ahead, Stephen.
Zach, how are you? I'm wondering, you may have some perspective on this, being on Sean's staff before and so forth, just what making a Super Bowl kind of does for the way you're viewed and the way it creates opportunities or whatever it might be, not just for yourself or anybody, really. What's your perspective on that? And do you think that that's just sort of a byproduct of having that kind of success?
Well, I can promise you we don't do it for the credibility factor of it. We do it because we want to be a part of something special with the people in this building. And that's what we take away from it. But I think a byproduct of that is it does bring attention to your staff. And even when we were 2-14 and 4-11-1, I knew that we had a special staff. I knew that we had a lot of guys that when these moments happened, people were going to start looking at and saying, okay, there's something special there with that staff as well. We need to try to pick that apart and take some of these guys. And that'll happen in time, because we've known all along that we have really bright coaches that have stuck together. They've got outstanding humility and character. And so they've allowed us to get to where we are, and you combine that with the players that we have and the character of the coaches that we have. And that's why we're able to play in a Super Bowl. And so I could talk about all of our assistants. They're all tremendous. We're lucky to have every single one of them. And they all have really bright futures in this league. And I think that spotlight is shown on them maybe a little bit more as we get to stages like this. People will start to look at them more. I don't want any of them to leave, but that's just the way it is. And so really happy to have these guys on staff and be a part of this 2021 Cincinnati Bengals team.
Going back to Mike Petraglia.
Zach, after the win over the Raiders, you said you wanted to start a tradition of presenting a game ball and, bringing that game ball to Mount Lookout Tavern was special for you, special for the team. But you have the opportunity, obviously, you want to bring home one more game ball. What do you think tonight will be when the crowd inside Paul Brown Stadium kind of gets to return the favor to you a little bit on the send-off?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really neat moment. And I'm happy that our players and our coaches get a chance to be a part of this. We certainly see it driving around the city right now. Everybody's wearing Bengals gear, and there's signs all up on the city. And, it's really neat to see that kind of feedback. We saw it coming back from our last game in Kansas City, and the welcoming party we had outside the gates of Paul Brown Stadium was really special to be a part of. I think tonight's going to be a really cool scene. 30,000 stands filling the lower bowl of our stadium. It's really our first chance since that Raiders game, like you mentioned, to get a chance to really enjoy these moments with our city that's so deserving of this. And again, we're really excited to be a part of it tonight.
Next up is Jess from Athletes in Action. Go ahead, Jess.
Coach, good morning. We've been talking to some of your players, Evan McPherson specifically, and in other situations like this, like coaches like Tony Dungy, where they're here this week excited. And they've talked about things like, faith and family and friends and then football. Just curious how those things line up for you and, pressing into towards Sunday.
In that order, as you mentioned. And that's just how I was raised, and certainly I'm a believer, and believe that my faith has put us in a position to do some really special things. My family is very important. I think all of our coaches and players' families are a big part of this. The support systems that we have at home. I've got the best wife going around, and she's been so supportive, and it's difficult for them too, and they get to enjoy these moments just as much as we do, because they've had hard times. They've had to endure, raising 4 kids by yourself, and same thing with all these other coaches' wives and players' wives. For the most part, we're gone a lot, and and usually these are the times we spend with them in January and February. We're happy to not be doing that right now. I think they're happy that we're not around, but again, it is fun to go through this process with them. I've got 2 boys that are 11 and 9 years old. And this is, this Super Bowl is huge for them. They get to enjoy it at school from their schoolmates and their teachers. And that part has been really fun that maybe people don't realize. We're here with the team. It's special. I love enjoying it with them, but I also love going home and seeing the excitement on my family's faces when we've done all these great things that we've done recently.
Well, we're praying for you guys. Excited for you to be there, man. Do well.
Thanks, Jess.
Hey, I'm sorry, but we have only one question remaining, and that goes to Brad Klein, WJPZ. Last question. Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you. Coach, do you believe that systemic racism exists in the coaching realm of the NFL?
I certainly think that we have a ways to go, and I've been around some tremendous coaches that deserve some great opportunities. And so I hope that continues to progress, because I've been part of some really great staffs with some really great coaches, and they all deserve that opportunity. And so again, I know we've worked really hard here at the Cincinnati Bengals, and our ownership has done a great job of that. And again, we've got some great coaches of a lot of different races that I think are very deserving of opportunities. I look forward to seeing them get those.
Okay, Zach, that's all the time we have today. We appreciate it. Good luck in your Super Bowl preparations.
Thank you very much.